had wanted to cover Douglas Ross standing down as Tory leader earlier, but unfortunately he hadn't resigned yet, and the only remaining question was what took him so long. It was a bit of a missed opportunity on my part, much like the time I refused to give in to the intrusive thoughts and punt previous leader Ruth Davidson into the pick and mix when I saw her in Sainsbury's on Leith Walk. True story. The truth is I've been struggling to keep up with the vortex of swirling absurdities in this election to devote time to focus on POB standing down. The rise of English fascism with Nigel Farage became the story, and I had to cover that. Much in the same way as when your house is on fire, you stop worrying about the rats in your cellar. So let's take a moment to reflect on the illustrious career of the man known as Three Jobs Ross. Yes, Douglas Ross managed to hold down more positions than a yoga instructor on Crank who's trying to impress a recently divorced client. An MP, an MSP and a part-time football referee. It's a wonder he had time to do any of them properly, which, incidentally, he didn't. He failed to turn up to a vote to cut universal credit because he was too busy getting abused and forged pound coins thrown at him in a football stadium. And let's not forget the $28,000 in undeclared earnings from his side hustle. Honest mistake, or trying to shrug your way through airport security after being caught with a kilo of coke and a drugged tiger cub in your suitcase. Remember when Jacob Rees-Mogg, with all the grace of a Victorian undertaker in a cholera epidemic, declared that Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for Scotland, was a more senior Tory than Ross? That's a bit like telling the new junior executive that the head of the janitorial team technically outranks him. Poor Douglas was left trying to assert his authority whilst Jacob practically patted him on the head and sent him away to play with his referee whistle. Ross constantly claimed to be standing up to Boris Johnson, but every time that he cut it, he basically operated him like a meat puppet. Ross's tenure as leader was riddled with internal conflicts. He had the leadership skills of an army ant death spiral. Internal conflicts, botched recruitment drives, and a party so divided they could give the crew of the Bounty tips on mutiny. Ross did more U-turns than trying to find the post office depot in a labyrinthine industrial estate you're unfamiliar with in the dark. And then there was his famous comment about gypsy travellers. When asked what his top priority was when he became First Minister, Ross decided to channel his inner Farage and suggested it would be to deal with gypsy travellers. The backlash was as swift as it was deserved and led to another handbrake turn on the motorway off-ramp. Even his stance on COVID-19 restrictions was a masterclass in inconsistency. Criticising the Scottish Government's approach whilst managing to flout the rules himself was like watching someone set fire to their own trousers whilst complaining about the heat. Absolutely my favourite moment from Douglas Ross's time as Tory leader was when the time that Mike Oxmells phoned into his Facebook phone-in and Ross just let him straight on, unopposed and unfiltered. Given Ross's master of mediocrity, his end was given about as much attention as Netflix cancelling another adult animated comedy. As he steps down, perhaps to focus on his true passion of blowing whistles and running lines, or perhaps moonlighting as a job as a haunted ventriloquist dummy, we can all breathe a sigh of relief. The political landscape in Scotland might still be a total shambles, but at least there's one less clown in the circus. Farewell, Douglas. Spectacularly, memorably, hilariously average Douglas. Let us all here at Shouting at News wish you a fond fuck off. I've been Plague Dr. Jim, and this has been Shouting at News. Bye.